What you are watching fall over the Israeli city of Tel Aviv is Iran's newest ballistic missile, the Kabar Shan, a weapon engineered not to carry a single warhead, but to disperse between 20 and 50 submunitions across an entire target zone simultaneously, making it nearly impossible for conventional defense systems to neutralize before it completes its mission. The ANFPS-132 early warning radar, operated by American Space Forces in Qatar, cost $1.1 billion to build. It was the most powerful radar installation in the entire Middle East. I use the past tense deliberately because Iranian missiles have now destroyed it completely. This is Dubai, the Gulf's most internationally recognized symbol of prosperity and connectivity, where Iranian Shahed drones are now striking on a daily basis in numbers that have exceeded the interception capacity of the systems deployed to stop them. American embassies across the Middle East are closing one after another. The USS Abraham Lincoln, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier valued at approximately $7 billion, has been repositioned away from Iranian strike range after Tehran claimed to have targeted it with missiles. Washington denies that the carrier sustained any damage, but the repositioning is a fact that speaks for itself, regardless of the official narrative. In the space of a single week, Iran is standing its ground against the most militarily powerful nation in modern history, in a war it almost certainly cannot win in conventional terms, but which it is demonstrating it refuses to lose on its own terms. And the question that demands a serious answer is this: how is that even possible? What does Iran possess that American advanced forces, American precision weaponry, American artificial intelligence systems, and American strategic leadership failed to account for when they made the decision to act? When the United States and Israel launched their joint operation against Iran on February 28th, the global assumption was probably that the outcome would be measured in hours. The Iranian leadership had been eliminated. Surely the country's most determined adversary would finally capitulate. But something happened over the following week that left the international analytical community genuinely stunned. Iran did not surrender. Iran retaliated methodically, systematically, and with a level of strategic coherence that suggested the response had been planned long before the first strike was launched. It targeted American bases in Israel and across the Gulf states one by one. And that reality forces a fundamental question about what the planners of this operation actually understood about the adversary they were choosing to engage. The answer lies in something that was not a secret. Iran has spent 4 decades building one of the most advanced, most cost-effective, and most structurally resilient missile and drone arsenals on Earth. And the scale of that program, its depth, its redundancy, its underground infrastructure was documented publicly before a single shot was fired in this conflict. Subscribe to Froome Report right now and activate all notifications, because what we are about to walk through is the strategic and technical architecture of Iran's military capabilities that the mainstream coverage is consistently failing to explain with the depth this moment demands. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps published a video in March 2025 that stopped global defense experts cold. What it revealed was not simply a missile program. It revealed entire underground cities of missiles, tunnel networks extending for kilometers beneath Iranian territory, with each missile stationed on its own dedicated launch platform. Nobody outside Iran knows with certainty how many of these tunnel complexes exist, how many kilometers of underground infrastructure have been constructed, or how many launch platforms are currently operational. What is known is that Iran began building this underground architecture in 1984, and it has not stopped since. Understanding this timeline is essential to understanding the current moment. The rockets and drones that Iran deployed in the opening days of this conflict were not its primary arsenal. According to multiple defense analysts, they were deliberately drawn from aging inventory. Older systems designed specifically to accomplish one strategic objective: drain the interceptor stockpiles of the United States and Israel. The opening wave was not the real attack. It was the preparation for the real attack. The economics of this strategy are devastating in their simplicity, and they represent perhaps the single most important dimension of this conflict that Western audiences are not being asked to understand. Iran was manufacturing and deploying drones that cost between $20 and $200 to produce. In some cases, the missiles it launched cost up to $100,000 to $500,000 to build. On the other side of that equation, the interceptors being fired to stop them, THAAD missiles, Patriot interceptors, AR-3 systems, cost a minimum of $1 million each, with some systems reaching $15 million per interceptor. And because Iran was launching drones and missiles in simultaneous saturating swarms, even when one projectile was missed on the first intercept attempt, 2 or 3 additional interceptors had to be fired in pursuit. The ratio of cost to cost was not competitive. It was not even close to competitive. For every dollar Iran spent putting a threat in the air, the United States and its allies were spending $20 to $28 to remove it. American defense strategist Kaylin Crook stated publicly that when Iran fires a drone costing as little as $1, the American defensive response costs between $20 and $28 to neutralize. Iran understood this economic equation with precision. It was not simply fighting a military campaign. It was conducting an economic attrition campaign against the most expensive defensive architecture in the world. According to a Bloomberg report, after the first wave of Iranian attacks, Qatar privately communicated to the United States that if Iran maintained its current tempo of drone and missile launchers, Patriot interceptor stockpiles would be exhausted within 4 days, at which point the situation would spiral entirely beyond manageable parameters. Qatar subsequently stated officially that no such communication had taken place and that sufficient defensive missiles remained available. Claims and counterclaims are a permanent feature of any active conflict. But the underlying mathematical reality of interceptor depletion is not a narrative construct. It is an engineering constraint. To understand where Iran's drone capability actually came from and why it has proven so difficult to counter, you need to go back to December 4, 2011, when an American drone went off course and came down intact in the Kashmir region of Iran. The aircraft was the Lockheed Martin RQ-170 Sentinel, which at that time represented the most advanced American surveillance drone in operational service. The initial American response was denial. When Iran released video footage of the intact aircraft, the Obama administration acknowledged the loss and asked for its return. Iran declined to be generous with technology that had just fallen into its hands at no cost whatsoever. Instead, Iranian engineers studied the RQ-170 systematically, reverse-engineered it, and built 3 new drone platforms derived directly from what they had learned. The first was the Shahed 171, a close reproduction of the original American design. The second was the Shahed 191, which Iran improved and converted into a combat-capable platform. The third, and by far the most consequential, is the simplest looking but most lethal of the 3, the Shahed 136. This is the kamikaze drone that is today pushing a superpower onto the defensive. Call it poetic justice or extreme frugality. Iran is using American technology to push back against America. But the story has one more layer that captures the surreal circularity of modern warfare perfectly. This drone caused such persistent problems for American forces that the United States itself reverse-engineered the Shahed 136, built its own version, named it LOCAS, Low-Cost Autonomous Attack System, and deployed it against Iran in the current operation. America copied the Iranian copy of the American drone and then used it against Iran. If the human cost of this conflict were not so devastating, the technological recursion would be genuinely remarkable. The engineering design of the Shahed drone explains why something so apparently simple has proven so persistently effective. The platform weighs approximately 200 kilograms and can travel 2,000 kilometers at a cruising speed of 180 kilometers per hour. They are always launched in coordinated groups, specifically to overwhelm interception capacity. Even when some are destroyed, the mathematical probability that 1 or 2 will complete their mission remains consistently high. Twin motors allow the aircraft to operate at altitudes up to 13,000 feet, and mounted at the nose is a warhead carrying approximately 36 kilograms of explosive that produces a significant detonation on impact. In its opening wave, Iran deployed Shahed 136 kamikazes alongside short-range Zulfiqar ballistic missiles, Qiyam ballistic missiles, and Shahed 129 surveillance drones in combined simultaneous packages against American and Israeli positions. The cost ratio for stopping each package ran between 20 and 100 times the cost of producing it. After the first wave degraded interceptor stockpiles across the region, the second wave arrived with a fundamentally different character. On March 2nd, Iran deployed hundreds of drones in combination with its Fatu hypersonic missile, and Tel Aviv's entire defensive architecture could not field enough interceptors to stop it. A single strike reduced an entire zone to rubble. The attack was of sufficient scale that Israel attempted to manage the flow of imagery and video documentation, sharing its own selected footage on official social media channels, suggesting limited damage, craters in roads, nothing structurally significant. But independent footage emerged, telling a different story entirely. The weapon responsible for the most catastrophic destruction is the FAT-2. This is not a conventional ballistic missile. It strikes its target at Mach 15, 20 times the speed of a standard commercial aircraft. It uses liquid fuel that allows mid-flight trajectory adjustment, making consistent radar tracking and interception extraordinarily difficult. Its operational range extends to approximately 10,500 kilometers, covering not only Israel, but the entire Gulf, American regional bases, and large portions of the Arabian Sea. No existing interceptor system in the current regional theater was designed to reliably neutralize a target moving at that velocity with that degree of trajectory unpredictability. To understand how Iran built this arsenal against 40 years of sanctions, international pressure, and persistent attempts at technological isolation, you need to understand the historical origin of the program, because it was not built from ambition alone. It was built from necessity, forged in direct experience of vulnerability. During the Iran-Iraq War in 1984, Saddam Hussein fired Scud missiles relentlessly into Iranian cities, causing mass civilian casualties, approximately 5,000 killed and more than 20,000 wounded from missile strikes alone. Iran emerged from that experience with an unshakable institutional conviction. Without a sovereign missile capability, a nation can neither protect its population nor project deterrence against adversaries willing to strike civilian populations without restraint. That same year, Iran began constructing its underground missile infrastructure. In June 1985, it saw technical assistance from Libya, Syria, North Korea, and China. By 1990, China was playing a significant role in Iran's solid-fuel missile development program. According to U.S. Treasury Department archives, the Fate 110 missile, which remains the backbone of the Iranian missile arsenal to this day, was developed with direct Chinese technical assistance. In 1987, North Korea provided guidance on missile development, and the CAM missile, one of Iran's most capable systems, is essentially an Iranian adaptation of the North Korean Hwang-10. Despite comprehensive sanctions and through 4 decades of patient indigenous development supported by targeted external partnerships, Iran assembled an entire missile army. Last year alone provided a preview of its operational scale when, during a 12-day conflict, Iran fired more than 550 ballistic missiles and over 1,000 drones at Israel. Even during that exchange, reports emerged that Israeli interceptor stockpiles were running critically low, and that American resupply was struggling to keep pace with consumption rates. Iran has never officially acknowledged the ceasefire that followed as anything other than a tactical decision, but Iranian officials have since stated publicly that accepting that ceasefire was a strategic error, because it gave the United States the time needed to manufacture and stockpile additional interceptors in preparation for the next confrontation. This brings us to the multi-layered defensive architecture that Iran has been systematically degrading since February 28th. And understanding each layer is essential to understanding why the degradation strategy is working. The first layer of Israel's integrated air defense is the AR-2 system, designed to destroy short-range and ballistic missiles in the upper atmosphere at approximately 50 kilometers altitude, striking incoming targets at Mach 9, and capable of tracking and neutralizing up to 14 simultaneous threats. If a missile survives that layer, it encounters David's sling, engineered to intercept threats with ranges between 40 and 300 kilometers, using stunner interceptors that employ hit-to-kill technology, destroying incoming missiles through kinetic impact alone, without explosive warheads. If something penetrates both of those layers, the final line is the Iron Dome, which intercepts short-range rockets and drones in the 4 to 70-kilometer engagement envelope, with a targeting algorithm that identifies and prioritizes only projectiles calculated to land in populated areas, allowing those assessed as landing in open zones to fall without interception. Supporting all of these systems is the American THAAD battery, capable of intercepting ballistic missiles at short, medium, and long range, both inside and outside the atmosphere, at a cost of $12 to $15 million per interceptor round fired. Iran's strategy for defeating this entire architecture rests on a principle of elegant systemic exploitation rather than brute force penetration. The salvo firing technique, launching hundreds of drones, low-altitude cruise missiles, and high-velocity ballistic missiles simultaneously in a single coordinated package, forces every layer of the defensive system to operate at maximum capacity simultaneously. The drones serve as decoys that consume interceptors, while the actual high V-value missiles pursue their targets. Layered on top of this is warhead fragmentation technology and decoy flare systems, false thermal signatures launched alongside missiles that confuse interceptor guidance systems while the real warhead separates and travels in a different direction. By the time an interceptor's targeting computer resolves the discrimination problem, the primary warhead has already completed its trajectory. And then Iran added the final element of the degradation strategy, one that fundamentally changes the calculus of the entire engagement. Without radar systems providing targeting data, interceptors are operationally blind. So Iran began systematically targeting and destroying the radar infrastructure that feeds the entire defensive network. The AN/FPS-132 phased array radar in Qatar, $1 billion of American investment, capable of scanning the sky across 5,000 kilometers, has been completely destroyed by Iranian strikes. The THAAD radar system in the UAE has been neutralized. The eyes of the American defensive network in the region are being removed one installation at a time. On one side, the radar architecture is being dismantled. On the other side, the interceptor stockpiles of America's allies are being consumed faster than they can be replenished. It is against this backdrop that Trump is now discussing support for Kurdish insurgent groups inside Iran and pursuing a regime change objective, because precision air power alone has demonstrably failed to achieve the operational goals of the campaign. The Kurdish insurgent groups approached on this question have responded that they have no interest in becoming instruments of American foreign policy, that they do not want American weapons, and that they refuse to be drawn into a conflict on terms defined in Washington. Trump's public tone has shifted perceptibly from the opening days of the operation. The confidence of the initial statements has given way to noticeably more measured language. American diplomatic facilities across the Gulf are closing sequentially. Voices within Gulf governments are asking openly why America created this situation and why the world's largest military superpower is unable to guarantee the basic safety of its own citizens stationed across the region. Protests are emerging within the United States itself, including among veterans who are asking publicly why American forces are engaged in what they describe as Israel's war. If From Report is giving you the analysis this situation deserves, the kind that explains mechanisms rather than just reporting events. Subscribe now and share this video with anyone trying to understand what is actually happening behind the daily headline cycle. The question that now hangs over the entire conflict is this: if America cannot stop Iran's missile program and cannot destroy the launch infrastructure fast enough to prevent continued strikes, what does Iran do next? Tehran has made its position explicit. Until American and Israeli bombardment of Iranian territory stops, Iran will continue attacking the economic zones of every neighboring country that hosts American military infrastructure. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively blocked. Between 20 and 25% of global oil and LNG supply moves through that passage. The price consequences of a sustained blockade are not projections. They are already being recorded in commodity markets globally, and Iran has not yet deployed what may be its most capable system. The Shahed, known informally as the flagship of the Iranian ballistic missile program, is a fourth-generation advanced ballistic missile measuring 13 meters in length, 1.5 meters in diameter, and weighing approximately 20 tons. Its official range is between 2,000 and 4,000 kilometers. It can carry a warhead of 1,500 to 1,800 kilograms. In terms of terminal velocity, it reaches Mach 16 outside the atmosphere and Mach 8 during atmospheric re-entry. It is precisely this system that American forces are now attempting to locate and destroy through intensified bombardment of Iranian territory. Because eliminating the launch infrastructure before the weapon is deployed has become the operational priority. And even in that effort, the intelligence dimension of the campaign has produced its own extraordinary failures. Israeli jets, multi-million-dollar advanced fighter aircraft equipped with cutting-edge targeting systems and artificial intelligence, conducted strikes against what were identified as aircraft on the tarmac at Trey. The targets turned out to be painted decoys. Israel had expended precision munitions against paint on concrete. So between precision-guided missiles, $20 kamikaze drones, and painted decoys, Iran has achieved something that deserves to be understood clearly and without political distortion. It has forced the most expensive and most technologically sophisticated military alliance in modern history to spend billions of dollars responding to cardboard and canvas to exhaust irreplaceable interceptor stockpiles against obsolete inventory, and to watch its regional radar architecture dismantled piece by piece, not through matching American capabilities symmetrically, but through intelligent asymmetric thinking that turned the cost structure of American military power against itself. That is the lesson other countries are watching and studying right now. Not the outcome of this specific conflict, the methodology, the demonstration that strategic thinking can consistently outperform the most expensive weapon systems ever built. If the thinking is clear enough, patient enough, and grounded in a sufficiently honest assessment of the adversary's actual vulnerabilities rather than its proclaimed invincibilities. Subscribe to From Report, activate the notification bell, and leave a comment telling us what you think the next phase of this conflict looks like. Because this story is far from over, and every development will require exactly this kind of analytical depth to understand properly.